Hey there, I'm Sam Sorbo for the Accidental Homeschooler. Thank you so much for joining me. This one should be interesting. We're going to talk about why Latin. Why do parents who choose to teach classical education, why do they teach Latin? And so I want to talk about that briefly, and I'm going to read you a little piece from my book, They're Your Kids, because I go into this briefly in the book, and I figured this was as good a place to start as any. Tracy Lee Simmons wrote a book called Climbing Parnassus as a, quote, defense and vindication of the formative power of Greek and Latin. Now, you could just as easily choose Greek or Latin, right? The author points out that although these languages may be considered dead, they were never mortal. So who killed them and how? Because they're like, anyway, they're never dead. And so I write here, I'm starting to agree. So I'm quoting from her book. The peddlers, those are the people who run the education system. The peddlers have shrouded the higher and subtler goals of learning, which former generations accepted and promoted. They've decided we are less, not more, than wiser people have hoped humanity might become. We are masses to be housed and fed, not minds and souls seeking something beyond ourselves. We have adopted the leveling assumptions we've inherited. Whatever works for you. And we fed off the intellectual capital earned by others who, we presume, have already done the hard thinking for us. We pride ourselves on self-reliance while following uncritically the roadmaps of others. For an independently skeptical people, we ask few questions. And it's funny because if you saw my Facebook Live video, I got very frustrated as I sort of worked through. I've been wrestling with this for 70 plus interviews now. I've been wrestling with this idea that parents are so lost now that they are asked to impart their own education to their children. I don't know how. And I struggle with, why is it that you feel so incapable and that you're not struggling with, how dare they leave me feeling this way? Rather than just, and instead people are just sort of accepting of, well, I just don't know how. In fact, the whole culture, people, when we start every interview, it's like, yeah, there are a lot of parents who just don't know how. And that's totally normal and reasonable. No, it's not. No, it's not. Okay, so I'm getting off track. Go check out the Facebook video if you're curious. I got a little heated there. Okay. Simmons expresses so succinctly what I've harped on for so long. It's the main reason for reverting to the classical curriculum, because frankly, not all innovation is progress. Okay, not all progress is advantageous. Do you see what I'm saying? If we make things so easy that we become stupid, that's not progress. Does that make sense? Okay. And so I taught my kids Latin. I taught them through, there were several different books that I would get for the kids. And I'm going to go into curriculum in just a minute. Latin has advantages over learning other more practical languages. So I got into a bit of a whatever with my son at one point because he was fed up with doing Latin. He's like, I don't want to do Latin anymore. I want to learn French. So let me learn French. I'm like, well, French will be a good complement to the Latin that you're learning. So keep going with the Latin, but if you want me to bring in French, we can totally augment your study stuff with French as well. And that calmed him down. And then he said, no, that's okay. I'll just keep with the Latin. So there are 4 really great reasons why to choose Latin as a primary secondary language, as your first secondary language for your kids. One is, it is easier than English. It's a very logical language. And English is not. English is challenging. We think it's less challenging because we grow up with English, not counting you people. And by the way, so many people who logged on Facebook from foreign countries. That was kind of cool. So Latin is very structured. And there is joy in structure, especially for young people, because, okay, just think about this for a minute. The baby's born into a completely new environment, completely different than the previous environment, which was warm and dark and wet, okay? And now the baby is in light, dry, right, warm, and sometimes cold. Like, it's just a completely different environment. And then the children are growing up in this, and they have no sort of previous experience to bring to bear. And so wherever they can, they look for order, because order makes them feel like it's controlled and it's not going to do something that surprises them. They try to put things in order in their head so that they can gauge the direction that they're headed, and so that they can orient themselves in the world. And so when we give them English grammar, it's fun for them because they're putting order to what appears to be chaos. And it's the same thing with Latin, although Latin is a little bit more challenging because they already speak English, right? So they think that you think that English is not as challenging, but in fact, it's really Latin that is a little bit less challenging. It just requires more memorization because they're not used to it yet. Okay, it is discipline in logical thought. Latin is very logical. The structure of the sentences is logical. Although it may appear not to be, once you figure it out, then you start putting it in place, and it clicks, and it's disciplined, and you're disciplining your mind. Third reason, it's fun. It's like a puzzle. It's like figuring out a puzzle. And so as long as you keep the levity and you don't make it too onerous, it can be a lot of fun. And then the fourth, the greatest reason for Latin is there isn't any particular pronunciation. So you're not, with any other language, you're stumbling through trying to not sound like an idiot. But with Latin, nobody can correct you because there really isn't any specific pronunciation. There are two types of pronunciation, but even among those, it's anybody's game. Okay, so I want to show you. So I went online and I bought, I can't remember, but baby Latin, a couple different baby Latin courses, and they were fun. We learned some Latin prayers, and we learned a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it really wasn't great, and it didn't stick, and it was fun, but it only lasted for that long, and I want my kids to learn Latin. And through classical conversations, I've been introduced to Henley Latin. So this is Henley, Henle, Henley Latin. This is the first year book. I have it spiral bound because it makes it much easier than opening a great big bound book. And then I also tabbed the pages that made the most sense. These are the declensions. That's what I tabbed. And then I stopped tabbing because I figured it out. And I could use the book. But what's great about this, and what you've never seen if you've only ever studied English, basically, is the grammar. So this is the other, there are 3 Henley Latin first year books. The third book being all the answers. Well, actually not all the answers, and it's a little frustrating because they kind of leave you hanging a little bit. But this is the grammar book. And if you look at the grammar book, it has all the rules. It's just all the rules. There are the rules. And this is a beautiful thing for a child to understand. There are rules, and this language really adheres to the rules. That's incidentally how I learned Italian. When I went over to Italy, I bought a little grammar book, Italian grammar. And then I started understanding the rules. It makes it a lot faster to learn the language when you do that. So for that reason, we love to teach Latin. Now, I want to leave you with this last little piece. Oh, I'm running over. Okay. T.S. Eliot said this, and I want to read this to you because it's important. No one can become really educated without having pursued some study in which he took no interest. For it is part of education to learn to interest ourselves in subjects for which we have no aptitude. I think this is so brilliant, T.S. Eliot. I think it's so brilliant. And I want to say Children are incompetent to determine what they should or should not learn. And I'm sorry, kids, but they are incompetent of discernment. They're incompetent. They have no prior experience that gives them any level of competency to understand what they need to know, what they need to learn, okay? But you do as a parent. And so I'll leave you with two things. One, make sure that they are learning something that is hard at some point. Make sure of it. And it is through the hardship that they hone themselves, that they learn that they can meet the challenge, and that they overcome. And then they see their potential, okay? Look, we're in a great deal of adversity right now, right? Coronavirus, shelter in place, all of that. So you're taking this opportunity to try home education, and it's hard for you, and you're battling through, and I believe in you. I know you can do this because I know you love your kids, and I know that you're going to come out of this stronger and better than before. And that's what I wish for your children as well. So my choice is Latin. I think Latin is a great way for them to hone who they are as individuals. And so I encourage you on that. Okay, and that's why we do Latin. Why do we do Latin? Because it's hard. Tune in, go and subscribe to all my videos, please, on my YouTube channel. That would be great. Go to samsorbo.com for anything else. My books are available there. You can email me there. Email me your questions. Email me your comments. I've been sending this shout out all for the past 10 days. If your school is sending home sex ed curriculum, please let me know. Also, go ahead and email me if they're not and you think that they should be. In other words, if your child is involved in a sex ed class in school, but somehow the school's not sending it home with the rest of the stuff that the school is providing, I'd like to know that, because I'd like to know why not. If it's that important that it has to be taught in school, why wouldn't they send it home for the parents to go through with the children? And you can see that I might be a little bit cynical. All right, thanks for tuning in. So we'll see you here next time on The Accidental Homeschooler. April 23rd, join Kevin and me for a date night with your special spouse, your special spouse. Join us. We're gonna talk about how to bring joy into a marriage, and how to make a marriage last and stuff like that. And it just is going to be a lot of fun. It'll be fully interactive, so we can chit chat. Basically, you can ask questions and stuff, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. Go to homegrowngeneration.com, homegrowngeneration.com/date, homegrowngeneration.com/date. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.